Welcome back to PFL's weekly Railcar podcast. I'm Curtis Chandler, President of PFL. We hope that everyone had a fantastic weekend. Let's dive right into the data. Initial jobless claims for the week ending November 23rd were 190,000 people. This is down 27,000 people week over week. Continuing claims slipped slightly to 1,939,000 people. Turning to the financial market, stocks finished the week in positive territory. On Friday of last week, the Dow rose 0.22% to close at 47,954 and 99 points. The S&P 500 gained 0.19%, while the Nasdaq added 0.31% to finish at 23,578 and 13.13 points. The Dow is set to open at 48,002 points in this morning's open. In the energy sector, crude oil also gained higher. WTI rose 0.0% to settle at $60.08 per barrel on Friday of last week. Looking at inventories, U.S. commercial crude stocks increased by 600,000 barrels week over week. We saw a significant build in refined products, gasoline up 4.5 million barrels, and distillates were up 2.1 million barrels. Propane and propylene inventories decreased by 700,000 barrels week over week due to a little bit of cold weather out there. In rail traffic, total North American rail volumes were down 3.09% for the week ending December 3rd. Interestingly, carloads were actually up by 2.04%, but intermodal volume dragged averages down and were down 7.78%. Coal surged up 26.98% week over week, while forest products were down 22.89%. Moving to rig count, North American rigs added 8 week over week. The U.S. was up by 5 to 549 rigs, while Canada was up 3 with a total of 191 rigs. Now let's go into the stories we are watching for you last week. First, we are watching the Hardisty terminal in the DRU. The market shifted decisively in favor of crude by rail last week with news from Gibson, ConocoPhillips, and Strathcona. Gibson Energy plans to expand the Hardisty DRU over the next 5 years, adding 100,000 barrels a day of crude by rail capacity. The DRU is a game changer because it creates a non-hazardous product that ships safely by rail, bypassing strict hazmat regulations and pipeline bottlenecks. Strathcona has doubled down on acquiring the Hardisty terminal. They now control 80% of Western Canada's terminal crude by rail capacity, securing a core egress strategy for the 2030s. We're also watching the political landscape in Canada. Prime Minister Mark Carney and Alberta Premier Danielle Smith have agreed to scrap the federal emission cap, removing a major regulatory headwind. In exchange, Alberta is committing to reduce methane emissions by 70% by the year 2035. Ottawa will now designate a 1 million barrel per day pipeline to Asian markets as a project of national interest, so Carney says. This signals oil is finally being viewed as an asset of national security for rail operators. This validates long-term infrastructure investment and suggests bottlenecks will be solved via a mix of pipeline and rail. On the merger front, the BN has formally petitioned the Surface Transportation Board to scrutinize the 85 billion UP-NS merger. BN alleges obstructive conduct by UP and argues the merger denies competitors access to customers. BN will likely fight trackage rights and so on and so on. We are also watching the CP CPKC, they report a surge in southbound shipments to Mexico last week as tariff fears push shippers to diversify supply chains. The CP is capitalizing on its status as the only network connecting the US, Canada, and Mexico. Finally, looking at economic indicators, the November manufacturing PMI was at 48.2%, slightly down. However, the services index was up to 52.6, up slightly month over month. For the latest and greatest on equipment for sale or lease or customized rail solutions, contact PFL today. Remember, we clean, flare, service, and store rail cars across North America. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next week with another update on what's moving the North American rail and energy markets. Please make sure you read this week's report and pass it on to friends and colleagues. It is free, and we do it all for you folks. Hope everyone has a fantastic week out there, and we will see you next Monday.